From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here on a Thursday. And I'll tell you this, usually we do open phones Thursday, as you well know, but today we're going to shift gears a little bit. We have one of our more popular guests coming with us back from his honeymoon. I hope he didn't mind me saying that, but I congratulated him on getting married, and we're going to ask a legal expert this morning. We're going to open up the phone lines, and some of the stories out there that we might have talked about anyway on Open Phones Thursday have legal ramifications. We can call along those lines if you'd like, but if you're someone in a position who thinks you might need a lawyer, or you're not sure if you need one and you want to find out, or you're dealing with a legal issue, your chance to get some free legal advice. The point here is sometimes lawyers take a beating. You know, lawyers, all they do is about, you don't appreciate a lawyer until you need one. And when you do need one, boy, you're glad they're there. And I'm glad he's here this morning with us. Attorney Andy Allman, good to have you.
Morning, how are you?
Nice to see you. Congratulations on everything.
Thanks.
Married,
yeah.
Back from the honeymoon. It's always tough when you get back from something like that, getting back in the swing of things.
Getting caught up.
And he is a busy attorney. Look, we can take, as usual, and you're good about this, general legal questions. But like a lot of attorneys, he has his specialties. And Andy, again, as we've talked about before, employment law, discrimination, things like this. Talk about some of the cases you handle.
Yeah, at our firm, we represent employees who feel like they've been wrongfully terminated. They may have been denied a promotion or advancement in their job. Just any type of adverse employment action that's been taken against them because of their age, their gender, their race, religion, national origin, sexual orientation. We handle a lot of claims where we have employees who have disabilities, or their employer might perceive them to be disabled and treat them differently or less favorably than other employees. Employees who've been out on medical leave, taken leave under the Family Medical Leave Act, only to come back and find their job's been taken from them. They've been fired or transferred to a less favorable position. So anybody who's in the labor force, whether it be blue collar or white collar service or production, who feels like that they are being discriminated against in the workplace by their employers under what we call protected categories.
Okay, I think there's a lot of people out there that maybe at one time or another may suspected something like that was going on, whatever. If you're in a situation like that, call in. Part of it too, though, is you don't call in and tell us about something that you think happened 4 years ago, because there are statutes of limitations, correct? How important is it to act quickly?
It's very important. Employment law is different than most other litigation that's out there in that when something happens to an employee, they really can't just immediately run down and file a lawsuit. The law as it stands right now requires those employees to what we call exhaust their administrative remedies. They've got to maybe pursue all of their avenues in an internal grievance procedure that their employer has. They will have to file charges with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the Tennessee Human Rights Commission, maybe the Department of Labor, maybe OSHA or TOSHA, and have to exhaust those avenues before they can actually file their lawsuit. Those avenues take time, and in some cases, those avenues, they don't toll your statute of limitations, so your clock is still running while you're trying to exhaust those remedies. So employees need to act quickly.
Okay, good. Well, we've laid that out, so you know that's where we can go with some of those questions. I want to just ask you a general legal question, and maybe you tell me what you would do, all right? So now, and it comes up because I'm in these cases a lot of times where there are criminal investigations going on, and law enforcement, maybe if there's a death of a wife or something like that, of course, they start looking at people close by. Let's say there was an incident where someone close to you died, and you had truly nothing to do with it, and there's no reason to believe you had anything to do with it, but law enforcement wants to question you along with a lot of others. Now, you have nothing to hide, you want to cooperate, but oftentimes, and I've heard in rare instances sometimes, because maybe you're nervous or the way you answered or the way sometimes just things fell by coincidence, you become a suspect, even though you are truly innocent. Would you, in that situation, when they come to you to do interviews and ask you questions, want to have a lawyer with you when that happens? Because there have been times where I have seen folks being questioned and they lawyer up. And to the general public, when they hear, oh, he lawyered up, he must be hiding something. And I'm like, that's not always fair. really what it means to me is they're being prudent and making sure that everything's getting out there properly, that no one's going to misconstrue something and bring some false charges against them because they maybe misspeak at a time when they're under a lot of stress and pressure for the loss of a loved one. How would you decide whether or not you wanted a lawyer by your side when you're being questioned? Not charged, but just questioned, and you want to cooperate?
I think it's wise anytime law enforcement comes to you and wants or asks you to come to the station and they want to question you about your potential involvement in any type of crime. I think it's always wise, it's always prudent to have legal counsel. And I think sometimes we kind of misinterpret, I guess you would say, or misperceive kind of what law enforcement's position is in that at that moment. Now, remember, a law enforcement agent who wants to question you, he really doesn't know you from Adam or Eve,
right?
And so he's kind of got all of his senses going. He's trying to figure out who you are, learn more about you, and then try and figure out what your involvement is. And you made a great point. Someone who's nervous, they're a little shaken up about something that may have transpired. They may misspeak, or they may not fully understand the question that's being asked of them,
right? Because
that law enforcement officer, he is asking those questions to pursue charges in a criminal proceeding. And it is always wise, it is always prudent to get legal counsel, because they can better explain to you what's being asked, why it's being asked, and then talk to you about what the answer is as far as the context. This officer is looking for this particular piece of information when they ask you that question, and they're asking it for to further an investigation and to possibly bring charges against someone down the road. So it's always good to have that counsel to clear up those questions and get the accurate answers on the record and be done with it.
And you and your counsel, and I'm just bringing this up because it could happen to any of us, and I bring it up because that doesn't mean you're not going to cooperate. It doesn't mean your lawyer is going to be there to run, interference. I would tell my lawyer, but I can tell you this, God forbid, if something were to happen to my wife, okay, I am suspect number one right off the bat. If you're a husband or a spouse of someone who dies, before anything starts, before they look at any evidence, the first person they're going to look at is the immediate spouse. And the sad fact is, a majority of the time, it probably is the spouse. But I'll know that going in. And I'll say, of course, I had nothing to do with it, but I'll know that that's what they're going to be looking at. And I want to make sure, I want to cooperate in every way possible, but I want a lawyer there with me. But the problem is, I wonder, even from law enforcement's point of view, if they're like, look, if you have nothing to hide, why do you have a lawyer? Or are they savvy enough to know that? Nick just wants to be helpful, but he wants to make sure he does this right.
I think a lot of times law enforcement agents will use that statement and make that statement to you.
They do. Why do you need a lawyer? And usually they're doing it because they think maybe you are guilty and they want to try to get you alone.
Right. Well, I think some of it is designed to kind of shake up the truly guilty person that's sitting there, who then just kind of unfolds and says, you're right, whatever. But always remember, when a law enforcement agent starts an investigation, they don't know you.
They mean well.
And so they are trying to do their due diligence to find someone who's guilty of a crime. So on the one hand, we kind of step back and we say, gosh, that they make these statements, they kind of scare us or intimidate us or question us in a fashion that makes us feel very nervous, even though we haven't done something. But you have to look at it from their perspective. They have a crime, they've got to solve this crime, they have no idea who you are, and they've got to figure it out.
And one reason I bring that up, and none of our viewers may want to, is I'm just curious what's happening behind the scenes with the law enforcement investigation in this Rob Baronis case. I know you've been on your honeymoon, you've been back, you don't know all the details, and it's not a criminal investigation as far as we know, but you've all followed this. The former Titans kicker involved in a fatal accident, and really what led to that. Was it a road rage incident? And I would imagine at this point law enforcement is interviewing a lot of people. I mean, they're interviewing the folks that encountered them on the road, they're interviewing his wife, not that she's thought to have had any involvement at all, but they want to know really what happened that night that led him to leave the home. Is she telling everything? At this point we have no reason to believe that she's not, but they are, and certainly their antenna will be up there in case there's any indication of illegality. So I wonder if these people being interviewed, maybe out of an abundance of caution, would want an attorney by their side, even though maybe they have nothing to hide.
And I don't think law enforcement is handling this fatality any different than it would handle any other fatality that involved a motor vehicle accident. I think Mr. Barones's his job, his profession, his status in the community,
who he is, right.
It kind of sheds more light on what has happened, especially giving my understanding his involvement in the community as far as charity work and things along those lines. But yeah, I mean, law enforcement, just with any type of death, is going to kind of look under every stone it can possibly look under to try and figure out what happened so they can close the case.
Yeah. So, all right. Anyway, listen, we'll take a break in a moment, but let's squeeze in one quick phone call. Line's open. That was just off the top of my head. What's your question for the attorney? I think his answer is, yeah, in a lot of those cases, in his shoes, he'd have a lawyer by his side, and I think I would too. You know, not that I'm hiding anything, but I want to help, but I want to protect and make sure that somehow things don't end up on me that are unfair or unjustified.
That's right.
Let's go to Lee. Hi, Lee.
Good morning, Nick. This question is sort of like for law enforcement and your attorney. It has to do with a pain clinic I go to.
All right.
All right. My pain clinic, I've told them several times that I cannot take morphine, and yet they keep trying to shove it off on me. And like yesterday I went and I got told that I couldn't get but half the pain medication that I need, so I can function during the day as a normal human being. And all she could do was sit there and try to shove more painkiller like morphine off on me, because if you give me morphine, I can't be responsible for what I do.
Well, don't they have other options? I mean, what do you mean they want to shove it? I mean, you go in and say, look, I can't take morphine. I have a problem with that. It's pretty clear cut. So does she not say there's these other pills like oxycodone or something they can give you?
Well, see, I take oxycodone 15 milligram. I take 130 a month.
Okay.
All right. It took us almost a year to regulate what I could take that would let me function normally, not make me high, not make me feel great, just be able to function with mild pain.
Right.
Well, yesterday I was told TennCare has cut everybody's medicines in half. You won't be able to get your full prescription anymore. But then turn around after about 3 months ago telling them they was trying to shove morphine off on me, and I kept telling them I can't take morphine because it changes my personality.
Sure. Okay, so what's your legal question before we go to the break? What can he help you with?
All right, on this question is plain and simple, is why, with law enforcement involved, telling TennCare that they want to solve, dope selling and all this, which I'm not, I'll be glad to take any polygraph tests, whatever. I've never, been in trouble for that. Why all of a sudden people like myself that need this medication are being cut and having to suffer with the criminal that is taking it and selling it?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And, that's more of an opinion piece for you and I, because it's really not a legal issue, but you know as well as I do from news coverage and the like that it's not necessarily the patients, certainly not someone like Lee. Some of these pain clinics are unscrupulous, and they're just going to write pain pills for just about anyone who comes in sometimes, and they try to crack down on them.
He's not really raised a legal issue. If it's more of a medical issue, and if he's not happy with his current position, he needs to seek out a second opinion.
Yeah, and contact your lawmaker. It's a fair question. I'm not sure what the details are. We can do another show, by the way, Lee, on TennCare and get into what's happening on the meds. I wasn't aware of that happening in that case. But it's coming about, I think, in part because they see a lot of abuses happening with these pain clinics and a lot of money being spent on these pain pills, doctor shopping, and these clinics giving out pills when they shouldn't. We're going to take a break. When we come back, if you're on hold, stay there. If you want to join us, you know what? We have some lines open, 737-7587. Andy's a good guy. He doesn't bite. We'll be right back after this.